The year is 1797. For nearly 4 years, Britain and revolutionary France have been locked in a brutal war for control of Europe and the seas. The French Republic, still reeling from the chaos of revolution, is determined to challenge Britain's naval dominance. Meanwhile, the Royal Navy, stretched thin across the globe, must counter every threat, every invasion, every French warship that dares to test its supremacy. On the night of January 13th, amid the raging storms of the Bay of Biscay, a crucial battle is about to unfold. 2 British frigates, the HMS Indefatigable and HMS Amazon, spot a lone but formidable enemy, the Droits des Loms, in English Rights of Man, a 74-gun ship of the line, battered but still a deadly force. The British captains know they are outgunned. Their ships are smaller, their firepower weaker. Yet in the darkness, with the wind howling and the waves crashing, they press the attack. What follows is a battle of sheer determination, speed against strength, tactics against raw firepower. As the storm rages and waves crash against the ships, the fate of the Droits des Loms and its crew will be decided in the dead of night. This is the story of one of the most daring naval engagements of the French Revolutionary Wars. To understand this battle, we must first understand the ships that took part in it. On one side, 2 British frigates, designed not for brute force, but for speed and precision. On the other, a French ship of the line, massive, heavily armed, yet crippled by previous engagements and the relentless winter storm. HMS Indefatigable. The first of the British frigates was the HMS Indefatigable, a powerful and well-respected warship. Originally built as a 64-gun ship of the line, she was later modified into a heavy frigate, sacrificing some of her firepower for increased speed and maneuverability. Under the command of Captain Sir Edward Pellew, one of the most skilled officers in the Royal Navy, the Indefatigable had already proven itself in battle. Armed with 44 guns, she could not match a ship of the line in a head-on fight, but in the hands of an experienced crew, she was a deadly predator on the open seas. HMS Amazon. Alongside her sailed the HMS Amazon, a 36-gun frigate commanded by Captain Robert Carthew Reynolds. Though smaller and less heavily armed than her counterpart, the Amazon was built for speed and agility. Her role in the upcoming battle would be crucial, coordinating with the Indefatigable to harass and outmaneuver the French warship, striking where it was weakest. Droits des Loms. Their opponent was the Droits des Loms, a 74-gun ship of the line. A vessel designed for the line of battle, carrying heavy cannons that could shatter an enemy ship with a single broadside. She had seen combat before and bore the scars of war. But now, she was in trouble. After a failed attempt to land French troops in Ireland, she was returning home, battered by storms and with an exhausted crew. Commanded by Commodore John-Baptiste Raymond de la Crosse, she was still a formidable warship, but her size and firepower would prove as much a hindrance as an advantage in the coming fight. As the battle rages on, the night is filled with a deafening roar of cannon fire. The HMS Indefatigable and HMS Amazon circle their massive opponent, unleashing relentless broadsides. Each volley tears into the wooden hull of the Droits, sending splinters and debris flying across her decks. The French crew, exhausted and battered, fight desperately to return fire, but their massive ship struggles to keep up with the nimble British frigates. Then, disaster strikes. A well-placed shot from the Indefatigable rips through the French ship's mainmast. For a moment, it wavers, groaning under its own weight, before finally snapping with a thunderous crack. With a mighty crash, the towering mast collapses, plunging into the churning sea below. The tangled rigging and heavy yards drag men overboard, pulling them into the icy waters. Cries of alarm rise from the decks as sailors scramble to cut away the wreckage, but it is too late. The ship is crippled. For the crew of the Droits, the sight is devastating. Hope begins to fade. A ship of the line relies on its masts to maneuver, to bring its powerful broadsides to bear. Now, stripped of one of its towering supports, the Droits is left vulnerable, adrift in the raging storm, unable to turn or escape. The British, sensing their advantage, press the attack. Amidst the chaos, Commodore Lacrosse fights to maintain order. He shouts commands, urging his men to continue the battle. But fear grips the crew. They know the truth. A ship that cannot steer is a ship that is doomed. The raging seas and relentless British fire have turned what was once a formidable warship into little more than a floating target. Some men abandon their posts, seeking shelter below deck. Others, too exhausted to continue, simply stare into the darkness, waiting for the inevitable. This moment, when a mast falls, when a crew sees their fate written before them, was all too common in the brutal naval warfare of the era. It is not always the final cannon shot that dooms a ship. Sometimes, all it takes is a single, fatal blow to break its spirit. As dawn breaks, the Droits is adrift, battered and uncontrollable. With her rudder destroyed and anchors failing, she is helpless against the storm. Driven by wind and waves, she smashes onto the rocky coast of Brittany. The ship breaks apart in the raging surf, over 900 men perish in the wreck. The British frigates have won, but not without cost. The Amazon, also caught in the storm, runs aground further up the coast. Most of her crew survive and are captured by the French. The Indefatigable, however, escapes, victorious but battle-worn. A clear lesson is left in the wreckage. Firepower alone cannot guarantee victory. Skill, discipline, and the unforgiving sea decide the fate of ships and men alike.